I walked the hollow verge for 11 years before they sent me in for Vashtara Ren. The verge was forest the way scar tissue is skin, technically true, technically alive. Sunlight came down through the canopy in flat gold sheets even at midday, and underneath it ran a line of waist-high white stones, 40 kilometers of them, set into the leaf litter a generation before I was born. On our side of the stones, the territory we administered. On the other side, the last quarter-mile of ground the Senachi court still called theirs, and had called theirs since the war that broke them down from an empire to a court to a name nobody outside the verge remembered anymore. My job was not to win anything. My job was to walk the line, log what crossed it, and make sure nothing crossed it with a weapon raised. Most days that meant nothing happened. I'd walk 4 kilometers of stones in the morning light, note the deer trails, note the places the Senachi had reinforced their side with deadfall, and walk back. Command called it perimeter maintenance. I called it the longest starring contest in the territory, conducted by 2 sides who had both run out of reasons to blink first. 11 years of that teaches you patience the way nothing else can. It also teaches you to watch. I watched the Senachi bury their dead twice in my first 3 years, and both times I stayed back at the stones and did not interfere, because that was the agreement, and because what I saw was not for me. They carry their dead to a clearing where the light comes down cleanest. They wash the body simply, without ceremony I could see from the stones, and then someone, usually the eldest who can still kneel, works a fist-sized lump of river clay between their hands until it softens, and shapes it into a rough, faceless figure no bigger than a palm, arms folded over where a heart would be. Last, while the clay is still wet, they press one thumb flat into its chest, hard enough to leave a clean deep print, and hold it there in silence for the length of a breath. Then they set it on a shelf cut into the clearing's far rock face, beside however many others had gone before it, and walk away without looking back. I asked my interpreter, an old Senachi defector named Corwin Ash, what the thumbprint meant. He told me it was called stilling the breath. The dead can't breathe anymore, so the living press the shape of breathing into the clay instead, one last inhale, frozen, sealed into something that will sit on a shelf until the rains take it apart in a season or 2, and the wind carries the dust back into the verge. He told me, and made sure I understood this part clearly, that the figures are never made for anyone still breathing on their own. To press an effigy for a living person would be to declare them already gone, a curse, almost, or a sentence. It was, he said, the one law of the court that had survived every other law breaking, the only thing 9 years of slow collapse had not touched. By year 9 the court was down to 40-some souls, and a single name still worth fearing, Vashtara Ren, who had led what was left of the warlord line since her mother died in the second burial I watched. She never crossed the stones. She never sent anyone to ask for terms. She held her quarter-mile of forest the way a fist holds a coin it has already lost, not because winning was possible, but because letting go hadn't been decided yet. The order to close the verge came in my 11th year. Command had run the math on 40 civilians, decided the line had cost more than it was worth, and wanted the court relocated or removed before the dry season made the forest easy to burn. I was given a week and told to bring her out one way or the other. I crossed the stones alone, unarmed past the knife I used for rope and rations, and walked into Senachi ground for the first time in 11 years of walking next to it. She was waiting at the clearing where they buried their dead, sitting on a fallen trunk with the light coming down clean and gold around her, exactly the way Ash had described it. She did not stand when I came through the tree line. She looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. "You've come to close the verge," she said. Her court tongue had a flatness in it that took me years to read as exhaustion rather than contempt. I told her the truth, because lying to her would have cost more than it bought. I told her the order, the deadline, the dry season, the math. I told her I had not come to kill her or her people, and that I had not come to make her kneel for anyone. Then you have come for nothing, she said. I will not cross those stones walking. I have buried my mother and 40 of my own on this ground. I will not leave it standing. I believed her. 11 years on that line had taught me when a person meant a thing all the way through, and she meant it the way the river means the season, slow, total, unhurried by my deadline. I had nothing left that was strategy, so I did the only true thing I had. There was river clay at the edge of the clearing, soft from the last rain. I knelt and worked a fist-sized lump of it between my hands the way I had watched her people do it twice before, shaping it rough and faceless, arms folded over the chest, the way Ash had shown me once on a quiet evening for no reason either of us could explain at the time. Vashtara Wren went very still watching me do it. I don't think she understood yet what I meant to do, only that a stranger was working her people's clay in her people's clearing with her people's grief in his hands. When the figure was shaped, I held it up so she could see it clearly and pressed my thumb flat into its chest. I held it there the length of a breath, the way I had watched the eldest hold theirs, and then I set the wet effigy down on the trunk beside her, still breathing in its small, frozen way. She looked at it for a long time before she understood. When she did, her face did something I had not seen it do in 11 years of watching her at a distance. It broke, just slightly at the edges, the way stone breaks before it falls. That law is for the dead, she said, and her voice had gone thin. I know, I said. I'm not telling you that you're dead. I'm telling you that you don't have to die to earn what your people only give the dead. You've held this ground for 9 years on nothing but resolve. I've watched you do it from the other side of those stones longer than I've watched anything else in my life. That's worth the honor on its own. You don't have to bury yourself in it to collect. And if I refuse it, she said, if I leave it sitting there on that trunk and walk away from both it and you, then it sits there, I said. I'm not pressing this to make you do anything. I've got no order that says give the matriarch a clay doll. This one's mine to give, not commands. You can leave it for the rain same as any of the others on that shelf. I just couldn't walk back across those stones without making it, knowing what I know now. She did not answer me beyond that. She picked up the effigy instead, careful as a held breath, and turned it once in her hands and said nothing more that day. I walked back across the stones without her, and told command I needed more time. They gave me 3 more days out of pure confusion, since nothing in 11 years had ever made me ask twice for anything. On the 4th morning, Vashtara Wren crossed the white stones on her own feet, in full daylight, carrying nothing but the dried effigy of herself wrapped in a strip of cloth against her chest. Behind her came the last of the Senachi court, 40-some souls walking out of ground they had buried their dead in for 2 generations, none of them in chains, none of them dragged. She did not surrender to me. I want that understood plainly. She surrendered to herself. On the morning she decided the resolve she'd already been granted credit for no longer needed to be proven by staying. The verge closed quiet that dry season, no fire, no fight, no last stand worth a report. I kept walking that line for another year after, mostly out of habit, until the stones were finally pulled up and the forest let the light fall on ground nobody administered anymore. I never asked Vashtara Wren what became of the effigy. I like to think it sat somewhere bright until the rains finally took it apart, the way every one of them eventually goes, the way mine would have too, if I'd ever let anyone press one for me.